Welcome to the InnerVerse. It's an illusion.
Welcome to the One Within All to another episode of InnerVerse, which I hope finds you well, wherever and whenever you may be listening. And when it comes to wellness, I imagine that many of you out there are well underway in the process of better understanding the keys to staying healthy, while simultaneously processing the deep frustration and worry that can come alongside watching our friends and family continue to bang their head against the walls of the ridiculously rigid mainstream hospital model, choosing to defer their own opportunity for self-knowledge into the hand-rubbing so-called experts who are often no better than simple yes men for the insane insurance companies and multinational corporations who signed their checks. It's been said that the truth will set you free and that knowledge is power, and there's no aspect of life that these statements are more accurate for than the subject of life itself. It's my firm belief that we can't change our loved ones by beating them up with conspiracy facts, scientific data, or even self-evident truths. But what does work is to set the example for what a happy, fulfilled, and vibrant life looks like by taking radical personal responsibility for our well-being. And that's where our returning guest, Clive de Carle, comes in to help lift the fog around our biological functions and supply us with essential products that can transform your body into the high-capacity reservoir of life force energy that it was created to be. After his own run-ins with the medical establishment in a life-threatening health scare protocol engineered by the mafioso malpracticers, Clive turned his dark night of the soul into a transformational testimony of the power of nutrition to do for us what no pharmaceutical chemical cocktail ever could. And he's been on the road of discovering what works best for each and every health situation that he can, always researching and updating his toolkit, all the while recording his findings for your perusal at his encyclopedic membership site called The Secret Health Club, where you can dial into the distilled holistic wisdom that Clive has gathered in an A to Z format, covering everything physical from overcoming addictions to properly practicing veganism. And thanks to the wide range of biology-boosting items on his website, Clive de Carle has become a name synonymous with wellness. So check the show notes for a link to Clive's website that includes an affiliate URL that allows Clive to kindly provide InnerVerse with support for the purchasers that I refer. And do give the goods a gander, because beyond the nutritional supplements, you'll find highly technological solutions for a huge range of issues, including Rife technology, Tesla technology, cold laser and frequency devices, water purification systems, and a whole lot more. And now it's time to get into the latest and greatest info from everyone's favorite British accented health advocate, the absolutely fabulous Clive de Carle. Thanks for coming on, my friend, and welcome to InnerVerse.
Thank you, Charles. Great to be here. You mentioned that the truth will set you free. And of course, this is absolutely right. But before the truth will set you free, it'll really piss you off.
It hurts. The truth hurts. That's the truth. So, man, been a while since we talked, I think over a year. What's new in Clive world since then?
Well, all sorts of interesting things have happened. I think one of the most interesting in a way was I've introduced a product which you might have heard of called Methylene Blue. come across methylene blue. It was invented as a blue dye in something like 1890. And within a few years, it was discovered that it wasn't just a blue dye. It did all sorts of interesting things. It was helping people rebuild brain cells. What they first discovered it did was reverse cure malaria. It turned out to be one of the best malarial cures. And microscopes were becoming a big deal at the end of the century before last. And microscopists were always looking for different dyes so they could stain their subject so it would sort of jump out, so they'd be able to see it more clearly. And each time they tried to stain, a fungal spore or a bacteria or any sort of pathogen, the methylene blue killed them, which wasn't what they wanted. So they realized that here is an antipathogen, a material that actually works really well. Now, I've just been studying the work of a medical doctor, Dr. Klinghardt from Germany, and he's suggesting, as are others, that everyone has Lyme disease and that methylene blue is one of the big hitters to get rid of Lyme disease. So I'm just looking into this side of it at the moment. But there's an incredible book, got it here actually, called The Ultimate Guide to Methylene Blue. And basically what it says here, remarkable hope for depression, Alzheimer's, autism, cancer, heart disease, cognitive enhancement, pain, and a whole host of things. It appears to be harmless, but there are always caveats to that. It appears to be harmless, right? A couple of months ago, 3 months ago, something like that, somebody wrote to me and said they bought a bottle of methylene blue from my site, and I recommend the book, for one, recommends you start with 10 drops in water. Anyway, she was epileptic and had seizures, and she didn't feel confident taking all 10 drops. So she decided to take 2 drops. So in the letter she wrote me, it explained that, it was a daily occurrence to have seizures. And this day, when she'd taken the 2 drops of methylene blue, she had quite powerful seizures. But with each seizure, she felt that her brain was overcoming the seizures. On the second day, she cuts it down, takes 1 drop. And I think she wrote to me about 3 weeks after that 1 drop. She carried on with 1 drop a day, hadn't had a seizure since. Most unusual. But I think the thing that people seem to notice most with the methylene blue is an increase in sort of mental ability. Some people seem to notice it within a day. Things are sharper, they're remembering things better, however it might be. So it's an interesting material. It's had a lot of publicity in the last few years, really, as people have suddenly woken up to it. But it's been used by the medical profession forever. They still use it. Methylene blue is a very popular medication, mainly because it's harmless. Hydroxychloroquine is derived from methylene blue. The thing is, you can't patent methylene blue, but things like hydroxychloroquine, you can. So generally speaking, they take usually natural substances, usually plant materials, and turn them into drugs. In this case, they've started with a synthetic material. But it's very interesting. And, as with anything I might talk about, I really recommend that everybody does their own research because, as Mark Twain said, be careful what you read in health books because you may be killed by a misprint.
Yeah, he has some real zingers, Mark Twain. First thing that jumps to mind is kind of a joke, but will the methylene blue as a blue dye protect you from the blue lasers of the directed energy weapons?
Good question. Yes, I have to pass on the answer to that one. But yeah, paint your house roof blue. Only wear blue.
It makes me wonder, though, if this is something that the medical establishment has been using the whole time. What we know that their business model is about keeping people unhealthy, keeping people right in that liminal space between full dysfunction or death and actual solutions. So I'm wondering about I guess, why the medical establishment has been using it, if it's something that actually has a positive outcome, or are they using it sort of in a misuse way, like just to do the staining thing?
They use it to neutralize cyanide poisoning, if I remember rightly. They use it to neutralize carbon monoxide poisoning. It does a lot, and there are a lot of ways they use it. Chemical poisoning, I think an overdose. Chemical poisoning and overdose, I would say that those are the major reasons they use it. It works. You've got to remember that in the emergency room, things are different to everywhere else in medicine. In the emergency room, their job is to save your life.
Yeah, they're probably the most trustworthy wing of the hospital.
Well, I think so, because basically their job description is don't let that person die. Whereas one might even say that in a normal hospital, the whole aim is to let people die. Here in England, clients are constantly telling me that they went in to visit their elderly relative, if they were allowed in, and they see DNR on it, do not resuscitate, or nil by mouth, meaning no water, no food. It's just insane. It used to be called the Liverpool pathway, and nobody knew what it meant until people realized it was total starvation, no water. They changed the name to make it more acceptable.
I have a lot of thoughts about the spiritual purpose of these death factories. Maybe we'll get into that. But while we're on the methylene blue, do you know more about the chemical makeup of it, or how the function of it in the body operates to allow it to neutralize these type of chemical poisonings?
Well, I have read the book, but I can't really remember enough of that side of the technical thing to give you any decent answer. But there are a number of materials for detoxification that are really worth considering. You probably know what happens. Let's say you get some chemical toxin from the food, the air, the water, whatever, and the body can't deal with it and immediately flush it out. So often what the body will do is it'll take the toxin that it can't get rid of, try and split it up into secondary toxins. And one of the issues is that if one starts getting toxins out of the cells, let's say deep in the cells and into the bloodstream, then one might feel worse. So a good example of this is sulfur as a supplement, MSM sulfur. Sulfur is incredible because it sulfates things. So in other words, if you've got a toxic metal, mercury, lead, aluminum, whatever it might be, if the body can't get that out, if you can turn it into a water-soluble toxin, then you can pee it right out. So sulfur sulfates toxins into water-soluble sulfates. Now, let's say you take just a little bit of sulfur because you're nervous, don't want to take too much. What can happen is you half do the process. So maybe you get it out of the cells, now it's in the bloodstream, you feel worse, you haven't taken enough sulfur to finish the job, and it goes back in again. So this does not apply to every supplement. With MSM sulfur, if you take some and you feel worse, take some more. Take some more and finish the job. So that's one way that one can detox. Then another way is to detox the liver and the gallbladder. And so many people basically have an enlarged liver or toxic liver. The liver does so much for us. And the gallbladder helps us digest fats. A lot of people get gallbladder problems because they're eating a low-fat diet. People on low cholesterol quite often have gallbladder issues. Now, traditionally, for years, there's been a really horrible remedy, which involves drinking loads of apple juice. It involves drinking loads of olive oil, taking loads of Epsom salts. You're meant to do it 12 times. I did it once. I'm just not doing this. I'm not doing this. It's really unpleasant. Anyway, there is a product that we've got on the site, which is a liver and gallbladder flush that works without any of the unpleasantness. There's a direct link from the bowels straight to the liver, and this it works as a suppository. So the sort of ingredients that are in the suppository are, and I'm just cheating and looking them up so I get them all right. Glycine, taurine, phosphatidylcholine, buplerium, chancropiedra, dandelion peppermint, trimethylglycine in organic cacao butter. And just one of the interesting materials there is chancropiedra. So if you've got a stone, what do you want? You want something that breaks up the stone. And you probably know a bit of Spanish. Chancropiedra means stone breaker. And you can literally pop a suppository up your bum and detoxify. So you just do that for 5 days. Don't need to do it any longer than that. And in theory, your liver and gallbladder should be, shiny clean. Then what about, I mentioned earlier about the secondary toxins. So we do another one, which is a sort of chemical detox situation. So basically, what sort of things can build up in the body? The basic chemicals that I mentioned. Then to get rid of the secondary ones, we have another supplement called albendextrin. And this is a liquid this time as opposed to a suppository. Actually tastes nice, and so often, healthy, so to speak, liquids often don't necessarily taste nice, but this does taste very nice. And let's say you've got a problem with proteins. You've probably heard of prions. Prions are misfolded proteins in the brain, and that can lead to, Alzheimer's. It can lead to multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, those sort of areas. So you can get rid of prions with our albendextrin product. You can get rid of a host of things like toxic fats, toxic waxes, crystals of cholesterol, the rancid fats, organophosphates, the runoff from pesticides and herbicides and so on. So some people who know that they're toxically poisoned, but don't quite know what to do, there are a number of products that we've just brought out fairly recently, which are really extraordinary and not the normal run-of-the-mill thing that you see.
I'm pretty interested in the heavy metals poisoning topic. One thing that's really interesting is, as my experience has increased doing the energy work that I do, biofield tuning, Eileen McCusick's method, I've actually run into a few situations where the old alchemical correspondence between Capricorn or Saturn with the metal lead, and also with the knees as the body part ruled by this aspect of the zodiac, that I had a couple of clients where they had, on the mental emotional level, they had big problems with authority, which is a Saturn Capricorn topic, problems and injuries with the knees, and a history of lead poisoning. So all those things actually folded together. I find that so interesting. But I was wondering, aside from those more subtle or synchromistic clues, and of course, there's way more than just lead that someone can be poisoned by, what are some of the signs of heavy metal toxicity, or ways that somebody can, check themselves out or know one way or the other and do it for themselves? Do you have any info on that?
Well, often the toxic metals are in the mouth with dental work. It could be a bridge or a crown that has a metal frame around which, some ceramic tooth is formed. And at the beginning, that might be all right. But if the tooth below the crown is now beginning to deteriorate a little bit, there can be a gap. And if there's a gap, saliva can get in and start, affecting the metal. Let's say that somebody's got two different metals in their mouth. They've got a gold filling, say, and a silver filling. Well, if you get two dissimilar metals in an acid environment like the saliva, you create an electrical battery. And as many of the meridians end in the teeth, this can be quite important. By the way, you may know that something like 90% of women with breast cancer have a root canal filling in the tooth that relates to that particular breast on the meridians. One can look at a meridian map. Anybody who's got a root canal filling or almost any sort of dental work, particularly if there's metal involved, it would be well worth considering finding one of the very, very rare natural dentists and getting them removed. But there are very few dentists who can safely do that. But I would say that an awful lot of toxic metals are coming from metal fillings. If anybody's got a silver colored filling in their mouth, that's as far as they need look to see if they're toxically poisoned. They will be. One atom or one molecule of mercury comes off, let's say it's methyl mercury or regular mercury, that will kill the first human cell it meets, and the second and the third, and it'll carry on killing human cells forever, or 25,000 years, or whatever the half-life is, I don't know. But with materials like vitamin C can be quite good for detoxifying metals, with MSM sulfur, as I mentioned, some of the other materials. One should be able to get them out quite quickly, but you need to make sure that, if you're turning something into a water-soluble toxin, that you're drinking enough water to pee it out, and you're actually absorbing that water. There's irrigation and there's hydration. So quite a lot of people, to make sure they are hydrated, might add a pinch of Celtic salt, a pinch of sea salt, a few drops of fulvic minerals in the water to be sure that it doesn't just irrigate, but actually hydrates. So being hydrated is important. For quite a few of the toxins one wants to get rid of, one might want to excrete them out, and making sure that your bowels are working properly before anybody does a good type of detox. Any type of detox can be a very good idea. One school of thought is that you should have a bowel movement after every meal. But if you're not having at least one bowel movement a day, well, that's not good. It really isn't good. So I would say the easiest way to get the bowel movement sorted out, generally speaking, is to take a good blend of magnesium. Magnesium allows relaxation, so that combined with enough hydration, and now everything should flow really smoothly. Magnesium is fantastic to fix constipation.
Yeah, magnesium is something we've talked about in the past, but it's been so long that I'm sure we have a lot of different audience here. And it's probably, along with vitamin C, one of those things that is so essential that it's worth revisiting for people who maybe haven't been supplementing that, have no idea exactly the huge breadth of bodily functions that are completely dependent on magnesium, which is so deficient in pretty much everyone's diet, other than maybe people who have really great soil and grow their own food.
But even then, they can be deficient because of the stress of the world. Our bodies respond to stress. Our bodies keep us calm in the face of stress, relatively, until the magnesium runs out. So most people are living a very stressful life. In the old days, the most stressful thing might be meeting the bear in the woods, and you got about 10 seconds or a minute to run away. and you're either dead or you're fine. And after a while, the adrenaline calms down and you're back into health and healing again. But a lot of people in modern life, from the moment they get up, let's say they switch the radio on, it's all ghastly bad news. Then they open the mail and it's all bills and ghastliness. And then they go to work listening to more ghastliness. And then they get to work, which a lot of people unfortunately don't enjoy. And that's ghastly. And ghastliness goes on and on. Then they're not earning much money, so they eat ghastly food. And that stress means that they haven't got enough magnesium. And the sort of symptoms that people get include things like, at a minor level, hiccups, twitches, particularly twitches around the eyes, constipation, as we mentioned, heart arrhythmia, where your heart suddenly races, back pain, sleep issues, migraines, epilepsy, depression, headaches, restless leg, where your leg kicks out at night, muscle cramps, any type of cramp, any type of spasm. The list goes on and on. And most people have experienced at least one of those. Heart attacks, for instance, that's generally speaking a magnesium deficiency. So they've now worked out, they used to think that magnesium affected 300 things in the body. They now reckon it's at least 3,000 things. And vitamin C absolutely complements magnesium, and magnesium helps vitamin C. So, I was, you probably remember the story, 38 years ago, I was in hospital. They gave me an antibiotic when I was fine. The next thing I knew, I couldn't walk or get dressed, and I got arthritis so badly. I was in hospital for weeks and weeks and weeks, and they just offered me drugs, and I refused the drugs. And I checked myself out eventually, took magnesium, vitamin C, and a few other things. All the arthritis went away, and it saved my life, basically. If I'd listened to the doctors and taken their drugs, I would have been dead 30 years ago.
Yeah, we're all glad that that's not the case.
Yeah, me in particular.
Yeah, it's much better to be here in the present moment having this conversation. So, Clive, I've got a whole bunch of potential topics and questions for you, but while we're in this first hour that goes to the public listeners, I would love to make sure that you have as much of the space as you want or need to talk about other new things you've learned about, or other things that are on the store that are, within the last year or two.
Okay. But the first thing I should say that if people go to my website, what they'll find is almost no information whatsoever. However, if they join the Secret Health Club, which is secrethealthclub.com, they can join the whole club, which costs about $100. But if they want just details on the supplements only, what they really do, which we're not legally allowed to tell you in England, then for I think $1, it's just to create a contract of a private club. Then you can get in and see all the information. So the Secret Health Club is sort of where to go to get more info. I'd like to talk to you about vitamin K2. So I've had vitamin K2 on the site for a while, but people don't appreciate how incredibly important it is. So let me read you. I've got in front of me some statistics. So this is risk reduction by increased vitamin K intake, right? Reducing the risk. So reducing the risk of all-cause mortality, dying from anything at all, it's 26%. So 26% less risk if you take vitamin K2. Okay, advanced prostate cancer, 63% less risk. 63% less risk with simple K2. It's inexpensive. We make ours from natto kinase, which is a food they eat in Japan. Coronary heart disease, 57% less coronary heart disease with just K2 alone. And it goes on and on. But the thing with K2 is that it goes with sunshine. So sunshine and vitamin K2 do a lot. You know about Dr. Weston Price, the dentist?
Yeah.
So
I know of him. I maybe don't know a lot about him, but I know the name.
Well, he was incredibly famous dentist. And what happened was that in the 1920s, maybe a little earlier, I can't remember, he started going to visit tribes that had been living naturally and had just been discovered. And he took cameras with him and he photographed all these native peoples still eating the original diet. And of course, none of them brushed their teeth. None of them knew what toothpaste was. He found certain societies where most of the people had brown teeth, maybe they're chewing betel nut or something. Found others that had green teeth, basically, because he's found some tribes that use bits of stick to get bits of stuck meat out of it or whatever it was. But he never saw a cavity ever. They all had big, wide, smiley mouths, lots of teeth, big, happy, smiley faces. And so he spent the next several years trying to figure out of the natural diet, and they're all varied. I mean, one island they'd eat this, one country they'd eat that. So, but he realized there was something in common, which was protecting their teeth. And he called that factor X. And he figured it out. He figured out that a mixture of high-quality natural cod liver oil, along with natural high-quality butter oil from cows that were grazing at the highest point of growth of the meadow. So, April, May, June, you've got all the wildflowers and the mushrooms and the herbs and the grasses all coming through. And the cows that grazed on that made a butter or a cream or a milk or whatever that was rich in K2. And some cheeses have more than others. Some of the Dutch cheeses, some of the French cheeses like Gouda, Edam have lots of K2 in. I think Parmesan has lots of K2. But these days it can be hard to get enough K2 from the diet. It's possible, but K2 is an inexpensive supplement. And what K2 does, apart from protect the teeth, oh, by the way, Dr. Price was repairing cavities with it, with his Factor X, the butter oil and the cod liver oil. He was reversing cavities. People think it's not possible, but you can reverse tooth decay. Once the dentist has drilled it, that's really hard. But if all you've got is a cavity, how difficult is it to deal with? Well, if I cut myself, I'd have a cavity in my hand. Well, I know what to do. I don't rub food into it or pour hot drinks or Coca-Cola into it. I keep it sterile, leave it alone, and in no time at all, it'll have healed up, assuming I'm well and healthy. If I got a cavity in my fingernail, would I rush to the fingernail dentist and say, give me a filling? No, I would wait for it to regrow. So if you've got a cavity in your tooth, well, that's a sign that you haven't been looking after your teeth very well. Maybe you've eaten too much sugar and acidic things all at the same time, or too many grains, or just too much high fructose, the bad food. So now you've got a supplement. Well, what if you do the same as with your finger? Stop eating for a bit. If you are going to drink things that are, coolish or lukewarm and good for you. And your teeth are regrowing all the time. You do a lot of chewing. Well, you're going to have worn your teeth down. Right, by tomorrow, they will have grown back. You can fill cavities in no time. There are dentists called ozone dentists who simply clean out the cavity, blow a little bit of ozone in there to make it sterile, and then your tooth can regrow, assuming you're healthy, assuming you've got enough K2, you're getting sunshine or supplementing with vitamin D in winter, let's say, when you're not getting sunshine. People don't realize that you can regrow teeth, So Weston Price basically proved this in the 30s. And it took till, I think it was 1997, till scientists worked out that Factor X that he'd found in the cod liver oil and the butter oil was actually vitamin K2 and vitamin D, essentially.
I recommend people that are listening to this go get on a image search. And what I typed in was Weston Price, native tribe, teeth. And look at the images that come up, man. These are definitely not people who are getting orthodontics. In fact, of all the rackets, the orthodontic racket is a brutal one. I've seen some very tragic things occur to people's mouths from and like a long, painful, drawn out, super expensive process. I'm really, really glad that we could cover the tooth question and the ability that we have to regrow tooth enamel and heal from cavities, things like that. And you mentioned how the meridian points are connected to teeth, that the teeth have a significant effect on our body's electricity, for lack of a better way of describing it.
It's massive. It's massive. I mean, when I was young, I went to a dentist who immediately, without even asking, started drilling holes in all my teeth. And I think he was doing it for the money only. I don't believe I'd never had a problem before, never ever had a filling, and suddenly I needed like 8. And now the problem is they do a filling, they take really a lot of tooth away to anchor in the filling, and that only lasts 10, 20 years. And then they can do it again. But after that, you're going to have to lose the tooth. And if only young people realize, if only I'd realized that K2, vitamin D, and avoiding dentists like the plague, if you've got a problem, fix it yourself. I'm sure I would have had a full set of teeth at this point.
I have a similar experience when I was young. I was lucky that when I did visit a dentist, the one that I went to seemed to have like a high moral standard and they would explain what I had the same one since I was young, like a small child, and kept going as a teenager. But at one point, the insurance that I was under through my parents when I don't know, 16 years old, got switched and the old dentist was no longer covered. So went to a new one, and this new guy, he's just rubbing his hands and he's like, your teeth are riddled with tiny microscopic holes that only I can see. And you need this, and this process to fix it. Otherwise, probably going to lose your teeth. Just like full shock and awe, scare you into spending the money like a sucker born every minute. It's probably remarkable how many people that would work on, especially younger people who maybe don't even, call their parents and ask about it. But I was suspicious. My dad and I both agreed instantly, like, we don't need this guy. We figured it out and went back to the first dentist. And all he suggested was, let's clean them. And they would even avoid the fluoride usage if I asked them to. But I am now in the boat that you're in and don't see the need to have somebody else do something that I have to be able to do for myself. But what I wanted to ask you now, since the teeth have this important element to our physiology of being like the end caps of electrical circuits, and when people have to lose teeth or, God forbid, need to have all their teeth pulled and are now in a dentures situation, is there anything that compromises in their like vitality, life force, energy, other elements of their mental or physical health that could be mitigated with the right knowledge and application and a type of supplementation or practice to help overcome the shortcomings? Because I know the body can adapt to this stuff, but I imagine getting all your teeth pulled, at least for a while, it have to throw you for a loop on an energetic level.
Well, if there are teeth missing, then the mouth tends to contract, and then it can upset the bite, and various, it can, some people, upset the jaw. So anybody listening to this, do not use fluoride. Do not use fluoride toothpaste. If there's somebody you don't like, give it to them. Otherwise, I'm just joking. Otherwise, take it to poison control, because you can't bury fluoride toothpaste. I think it says in America, doesn't it, on if you swallow more than a pea-sized amount of fluoride toothpaste, you must go to poison control. And so they put fluoride in strawberry toothpaste for children, who, of course, swallow it. And
I did when I was first brushing my teeth on my own. I swallowed the toothpaste for a long time before my mom realized I was doing that. So when I lost the baby teeth and the new teeth came in, I have this like discoloration thing on my teeth where
that's fluoridosis. That's fluoride poisoning.
Yeah.
If somebody's teeth are going a bit translucent, that's fluoride poisoning. And the incredible and there are many incredible things about fluoride. The Americans before the Second World War, it was reported to the American government that the Russians, the Soviet Union at that point, were importing loads and loads of fluoride into the Soviet Union. And the Americans apparently wondered why. They were worried they might have developed some new bomb or something. So they sent their spies to the Soviet Union to figure out what they were doing. And they found it was pretty easy what they were doing. They were giving it to the guards and, they're giving it to the prisoners in the gulags because it dumbed them down. They needed way less guards because it's a neurotoxin, it's brain damage. So one of the interesting things about antidepressants is they're often made from fluoride. And if you're taking an antidepressant, if it says fluoro at the beginning, when you look at what the drug actually is, that means it's a fluoride-based drug. So if you take an antidepressant, do your problems, difficulties in any way go away? No. But you just don't give a shit the way you used to because you're dumbed down with the fluoride. Yeah, I still got the problem. I don't really care. I mean, how ridiculous is fluoride? And they try to, most dentists believe that fluoride is good. I read the original report about fluoride, the proof supposedly from, 1950 or something, whenever it was, and it's all rubbish. It's extrapolation of facts that don't make sense. None of the fluoride story is right. As you probably know, it comes from there are different types of fluoride. There's calcium fluoride and sodium fluoride. One is way toxic, which is the one that comes from the aluminum processing industry. If the aluminum processing industry had to dump the fluoride, it would be a major toxin and it would be really, really difficult and expensive. But if the aluminum industry via toothpaste and the water supply filters it through a human being, that's free and legally neutralizes it by dumping it in the body of the person consuming fluoride. Let me tell you something. There are 3 halogens that are toxic. There's bromine, fluoride, and chlorine. Then there's one that's healthy, which is iodine. All the other 3 displace iodine. So I made a video a few months ago where I got 3 glasses of water. I'd filled it straight from the tap, so it had chlorine in the water. I got a little bottle of chlorine indicator drops, which you use them for swimming pools. You take a sample of the water, you put the chlorine indicator drops. If it goes green, good, there's enough chlorine, right? So the first glass goes green. The second glass, I put my fingers in for 5 seconds, pull them out, put the chlorine indicator drops in, nothing. Third glass, I get a slice of raw potato, stir it around for 3 seconds, pull it out, put the chlorine indicator drops in, nothing. So if you're having a bath or a shower or you're cooking with, drinking chlorinated water, I used to think that maybe, 1% of the chlorine goes into your body. From that experiment, it looks as though it all goes in, or an awful lot of it. So we are, if we're damaged with chlorine, which was a poison gas, we're knocking out the iodine. That means our thyroid doesn't work properly. That means that women get all the menopausal signs because women in Japan have so much iodine and they're not stupid enough to put so many toxins around. They have so much iodine with the seaweed that they eat that they don't even have a word for menopause because of all the iodine they get. They don't have a word for menopause. Japanese women don't really get the menopause and they get much lower breast cancer because iodine is mainly in the thyroid. Everybody with a thyroid issue, I'll bet money, whether it's high thyroid, low thyroid, the problem was almost certainly caused in part in the main by lack of iodine. Iodine goes with selenium. And if anybody's got a thyroid problem, if somebody's low on iodine, what they may notice is dry skin. If they're really low on iodine, their elbows might be dry. They might find they've got brain fog. They walk into a room, can't remember why they walked in. Where did I put those car keys? What was I just thinking? What's my name? Their temperature might be out of control. Might be those people, you meet them, my God, your hands and feet are freezing. Or Sometimes people run really hot, like menopausal women sometimes. So iodine, along with selenium, can fix all that, sometimes in days, usually within a few weeks, just a few weeks, but you've got to know how to take it. 150 years ago, 100 years ago, all doctors knew that you needed to give iodine in microgram doses. Now, since the Second World War, doctors have been taught milligram doses. It's meant to be milligram doses. Doctors these days are taught it should be microgram doses, 1,000 times less. And so many of the supplements out there are so weak, it's a joke. You need Lugol's iodine, which has been around for 150 plus years, proven to work. It's just a mixture of elemental iodine and potassium iodide. Potassium iodide is what the American military give to people who might be getting radiation poisoning. When Fukushima happened, iodine supplies worldwide sold out immediately because everybody who knew bought it, sold out. Iodine was sold out worldwide, anti-radiation, anti-poisoning. Anybody goes swimming in a swimming pool with chlorine, oh my God, they need iodine. You drink it in water before they get in the swimming pool and afterwards, both. You want to be bright, sharp, clear in the brain department, body temperature, balance normal. Iodine, how much does it cost? I don't know, $30 for a year's worth? So why don't the doctors tell you about it? Because it's $30 for a year's worth, not, L-thyroxine, the typical drug they prescribe. I don't know what that really costs, but I bet it's not cheap.
I really appreciate, I think it was the last time we talked, that the information you shared regarding taking a bath on your standard tap water in a city somewhere, to add vitamin C powder, boron, magnesium, things like that to the bath to neutralize. And I don't remember what neutralizes what, but I believe the fluoride and chlorine in particular are neutralized by the boron and vitamin C, one helping out with the other.
But to clarify, vitamin C instantly neutralizes chlorine, instantly. So you put a teaspoonful or two of pure vitamin C powder, or probably even half a teaspoon would probably detoxify the bath.
And it's good for your skin anyway to absorb through the water.
Good for your skin. On my website, I sell a shower filter, which actually is filled with vitamin C. And the one I've had has lasted about a year. And so you only need the tiniest amount of vitamin C to neutralize chlorine. And again, the people using the shower filter, generally women, say, my skin feels softer, that kind of thing. So boron or borax, you can just go to the store in the States and get 20 Mule brand borax, super cheap. They wash clothes in borax. A teaspoonful again in the bath will neutralize fluoride. If you're unlucky enough not to be able to filter out the fluoride in the tap water and you've got to drink that shit, then it may be worth putting a pinch of borax into a liter of water, a couple of pints of water, quart of water, drink that, and that would neutralize the fluoride. But also it gives you testosterone. Boron is very useful for people with arthritis quite often to get rid of arthritis. And it can be very useful to build up testosterone and balance hormones. It's an interesting material. So some people have baths in magnesium chloride, Dead Sea salts, and that's great. You need a lot. You need a pound or two in the bath to do it. Some people use magnesium sulfate, which is Epsom salts. But if you're using Epsom salts in a bath, again, like a pound or something, be aware that jockeys who want to lose weight before a race have Epsom salt baths to dehydrate themselves to lose weight. So if you're going to have an Epsom salt bath, make sure you drink lots and lots and lots and lots of water. Then often people put things like citric acid in the bath. They might put bicarbonate of soda in the bath. And bicarbonate of soda is incredible. There's a book here, which I recommend everybody buys, called sodium bicarbonate by Dr. Mark Serkis, Nature's Unique First Aid Recipe. And bear in mind that baking soda isn't necessarily sodium bicarbonate. If you're going to do it, you want pure sodium bicarbonate. And I'll just read you through some of the uses. Again, all these things I have on my website, the products that is. So bicarbonate use for the pancreas, diabetes, kidney disease. When they're treating people in hospital for kidney disease, they use bicarb. Cancer, there's a whole treatment protocol for cancers using bicarb, incredibly effective. You can nebulize the stuff. You can have baths in it. You can have wraps in it. The thing that people don't realize is that sodium bicarbonate is almost the equivalent to carbon dioxide. Now, carbon dioxide has been demonized in the world. Oh, carbon dioxide is evil. But of course, obviously, carbon dioxide is fantastically wonderful and necessary. You probably know this number, but do you know what percentage carbon dioxide is in the atmosphere? What percentage is carbon dioxide?
I don't, but I would reckon that it's pretty high percentage.
It's 0.04%.
Oh, but I thought we were about to catch on fire worldwide because of the bad carbon dioxide.
Do you know, I know this is going to be an awful shock. They've lied.
I assumed it was high because we all exhale it, that there would be a general amount in the air, but no, it's like basically nothing. That makes more sense, honestly, in the world of inversion and everything is opposite day that they tell you on the TV.
Exactly. I mean, the reason that oxygen levels are going down because trees consume carbon dioxide and turn them into oxygen, but they're cutting all the trees down. Bill Gates now apparently wants to cut trees down and bury them to help carbon. I don't know why, he's insane. But so with sodium bicarbonate, they use it in the emergency rooms. They have it on the crash carts, ready to inject in case of emergency needs. So if somebody is under 60, they could consider using bicarbonate very carefully. So let's say you're one of these people who's eating too many carbs, eating loads of meat and cheese and stuff, and maybe not enough vegetables. And now you're running a bit acidic. Maybe you're unlucky enough to be poor in America, and instead of eating wonderful grass-fed proper meats, you're eating those sort of meats where they fed the cows or pigs grains or genetically modified soya. Those animals who've been fed grains and not grass, so to speak, will be running acidic. They'll be ill. So if we're eating that, and let's say we can't get fresh vegetables or something, and that's the sort of diet we're on, pasta, pizza, pies, whatever it might be. If you took half a teaspoonful, or even quarter of a teaspoonful if you're over 60, in a glass of water just before bed, that will keep you alkaline all night. When you're alkaline, you're you should be in full-on healing. So it changes the pH of the body. The pH of the body changes the voltage, the cellular voltage, and cellular voltage is the difference between well and ill. So just a tiny amount of sodium bicarb just before you go to bed. All through that sleep process where we go through every couple of hours, the body chooses to sort out one or two organs. So it's between 1 and 3, it's kidneys and liver. 3 to 5 at night, it is lungs. And you can look at the Chinese organ clock, as they call it. So let's say you wake up at 3 in the morning. Well, that could be your lungs, particularly if it's like 3:30 rather than maybe 3, because you're at the end of one cycle into another. But these days, a lot of us, our lungs aren't as good as they were. For a lot of people, their liver, kidney, gallbladder aren't functioning right. I mean, almost everybody isn't functioning as well as they could because they're poisoned by society, air you're breathing, food you're eating, and so on. So sodium bicarb can be very, very useful. tell you how else people use it. Let's say somebody's got cancer. They should certainly buy this book, Sodium Bicarbonate, or Dr. Mark Circus with an S, by the way, has written an incredible book of cancer cures, and sodium bicarb is right up there as one of the ways to do it. So somebody, if they're under 60, might want to take half a teaspoonful 2 hours minimum after a meal. You don't want to take it with a meal or immediately afterwards, because sodium bicarbonate is so alkaline, it will turn off stomach acid. So you don't want to do that. You need all the stomach acid you can get. Everybody's been told, oh, you've got too much stomach acid. That's why you're getting acid reflux. It was a lie. You've got too little stomach acid. That's why you're getting acid reflux. So you want to be careful of sodium bicarb because it turns off stomach acid. So that's why you want to take it 2 hours after a meal. And many, many people have reported that their tumors have shrunk. There are doctors around the world who are actually inject sodium bicarb through the skin right into the tumor. Don't try this at home, folks. But sodium bicarb, and what does it cost? $15, and you'll get loads. You can buy it in bulk online, but make sure you get, the pure stuff. Another material which is super interesting is niacin. This is a book, Niacin, The Real Story. And I first heard about niacin, maybe 20 plus years ago, 30 years ago. And the first medical trial to balance cholesterol was with niacin. They also gave various other vitamins. Niacin is vitamin B3. And I think I'm not sure what the date was, but decades ago. And they found that niacin was part of the answer of balancing out cholesterol. So one of the authors here, Abraham Hoffer, he was a psychiatrist in Canada, and Bill W. came to him. Bill W. was one of the founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. And Bill W. was so impressed with its ability to overcome depression, to overcome schizophrenia in some cases, to overcome bipolar, manic depression, that he wanted to make it the 13th step of AA. But his organization had sort of been infiltrated and taken over at that point. It never became the 13th step. But what niacin can do is amazing. Now, the dosage, again, with everything I'm talking about, dosage is everything. It's getting it right. So the people who are schizophrenic, manic depressive, they may need 3 grams a day, maybe more, whereas the average person might just need half a gram. So there are 2 types of niacin. There's the type that gives you an all-over body flush. You sort of go red and the blood rushes around.
I remember using that to pass a drug test for jobs in my early 20s to get the THC out of the fat cells.
So some people really like that experience. Personally, I'm a bit about it, but there's a non-flushing type. So I make a blend, actually, of different non-flushing types and just a tiny bit of the flushing version, because the flush is good. It's just enough, maybe just to give you a little hint of it. But if you take it regularly, then you don't notice it anymore. And again, this is just simply, I'll just go through the chapter headings a little bit. Mental illness, children's learning and behavioral disorders, reversing arthritis, cardiovascular disease, aging, allergies, alcoholism, addiction, Alzheimer's, anxiety, I'm only on the A's, cancer, cataracts, cholera, diarrhea, detoxification, erectile dysfunction, fatigue, various diseases, migraines, MS, multiple sclerosis, nephritis, obesity, Parkinson's, PTSD, Raynaud's, skin conditions, trigeminal neuralgia. It just goes on and on. One vitamin. So that's vitamin B3. what if you took all the B vitamins? B1, B2, the whole lot. B1, people who have body dysmorphia, they have anorexia. They see themselves as fat when actually all the other people see them as thin. That's a vitamin B1 deficiency. Diabetics often get tingling, numbness in their hands and feet. That's vitamin B1 deficiency. And that's just one out of loads of things that B1 does. All the B vitamins are good for energy. Vitamin B17 is known as a cancer reversal tool. Vitamin B12, if you run out of B12 for a long time, you can get dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis. That's shortage of B12. Vegans run out of B12, might take 20 years. It's incredible how long B12 can last in the body in some cases. But when they run out, oh my God. Even the doctors know about B12, but they don't fully grasp the connection with MS and Parkinson's and so on. How are we doing for time?
It's a great moment to wrap up the first hour for our transition over to the second part. Cool. And so you can remind everybody where they can find your stuff and anything you want to share with them before we hit up the second part.
Yeah, so there should be a link directly below Chance's affiliate link. The website itself is actually clivedecarle.com. And my secondary website is secrethealthclub.com, where the information is all hidden. 2014, the English government took me down from YouTube. 2014.
Ahead of the curve.
Yeah. And I decided, right, okay, well, I'm going to set up a private members club that they can't censor me on. So for the last, 9 years, me and my little team have been building it into like an A to Z of really interesting stuff. The very first video that pops up, and there are articles and stuff as well, is how children can see blindfolded without their eyes. Some children can learn in 5 minutes. They can do everything. They can read books, do whatever you like, because there's another mechanism in the body that allows children to see without their eyes between age of 3 and 11.
And that's
older than that, they lose it. They can't do it anymore.
I think that there's some kind of ability to sense things, at least on a subtle level, even as an adult, because I've had experiences like that in meditation where I'm sitting and breathing with my eyes closed, and I realize I can see the whole room around me in 360 degrees. It's like a dim, darkly lit image, but it's there. It's something that we can all potentially tap into. I think our senses may be something primary to our physicality. Out of body experiences people have, they can see, hear, all of that, but they're not in their physical body, or their body's like shut off, their heart stopped, things like that. So that's a huge mystery and a fascinating one. I think it's related to synesthesia. Might be fun to talk about that in the second part too.
Yeah, let's.
All right. Well, thanks for being here, Clive, and we'll pick this up on part 2.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Hallelujah and praise be. Another rip-roar and fun time with Clive de Carle. I always like the yearly checkup that I've been doing with Clive. I think we'll keep that tradition alive. Hey, I rhymed. He's just a wealth of knowledge, and I think that his Secret Health Club is one of the best resources out there. He generously, the first time we talked, provided me with a login. And so I'm able to get in there and investigate on a topic, specific one that I want to find. Like the A to Z layout of it is awesome. So I think that things like that, or the Tom Cowan New Biology Clinic, they're the way to go. This type of model, as opposed to the going to the butchers and asking them to poison you and maim you for your health, right? That's not going to work. I think we're all past that. But ultimately, one of the great things about Clive's supplement-based approach to a lot of the health solutions that he's got to offer is that it is more of a bridge between the normie, if you will, and the spiritually aligned energy healing type, right? Because let's face it, I don't think that I could convince everybody in the world that I might talk to that we can help them resolve their health problems through finding where the stuck energy is in their field and getting it back into flow and changing the beliefs that were limiting them and processing the stuck emotions. More and more people are there, but definitely not everybody is there. However, magnesium, tons of science behind that, easy to point to it. And, they're already, whoever you might offer this to, who's more skeptically minded or more normie minded, they're already probably prone to popping pills. So it's easy to offer them magnesium as a potential upgrade to their regimen. And as Clive says, everybody could be using it and ought to be using it because there's a lot of stress in the world and your body depletes the magnesium reserves when it's stressed. I honestly wonder if I've been taking enough lately. I've been taking just like 2 a day for a long time. And maybe I should give it a shot to push that a little further, at least to the point where I might be in the bathroom a little more than I want to be or something. But yeah, I love Clive's magnesium blend. If you guys out there are not currently magnesium users, or you are buying it from maybe another source or a grocery store or something like that, consider checking out Clive's version of it, because most magnesium that you buy is going to be a single form of magnesium or maybe two. And there's actually a lot of different types of magnesium, subgroups of it. And the supplement that Clive provides, I think it's like 5 different magnesiums blended together, which means it's going to cover all your bases, because each of these different types of magnesium, it works in the body in a different place for a different thing. And we do honestly need all of it. So when we talk about magnesium, we're not even just talking about one thing, unless it's the one and done supplement that Clive's got, which is, like I said, 5 packed together. So you're making sure to cover it all off. Now, the other thing that if it's not in your toolkit, that's essential, and you don't necessarily have to get it from Clive, but Clive's version of it is great. Although it's a lot easier to find decent vitamin C out there. Vitamin C should be on your checklist. It is a super vitamin. And I would love it if some of you guys might try ordering some stuff from Clive and using the affiliate link. That helps me out. I don't always promote it, but I probably ought to more often, because it costs you nothing extra. And Clive generously sends me some kickback. I love those type of win-win relationships. And this one's been a great one for me for a good couple of years now. So if you guys enjoyed hour 1 and you'd like to know what we talked about in the second part, you can hear it on Rockfin or Patreon. That's going to be linked in the episode description. Patreon.com/InnerVerse or Rockfin.com/InnerVerse. The Patreon is the full archive of everything I've ever done, including previous episodes with Clive and their second hours. And it's only $5 a month. Quite a steal of a deal for today's inflated currencies. $5 a month ain't much. And the archives are much. There's mucho grande content in there for you to enjoy. And you get to support your boy. I don't know why I'm just doing terrible rhymes tonight. So Rockfin, $15 a month, worth it as well, though, because you get the entire catalog of independent video makers and creators that are on Rockfin, of which many of them are friends of mine and have been on this show. So if you want to go big, go Rockfin. Also, you can catch the live streams there whenever I do a live InnerVerse episode and you want to catch the second hour and not wait for it and be there with the other chatters. Rockfin's the way to go for that. And all in all, I kind of like the Rockfin app more than the Patreon app. Upside of Patreon, though, is that you can get an RSS feed, copy that link to your podcast player of choice, and hear the extended InnerVerse episodes right there where you would hear any other podcast in your favorite app. Rockfin, though, if you're not looking for the videos, one thing I don't talk about that often is on the Stacks page of my Rockfin page. Stacks is a tab on there. It's basically their word for a playlist. And there is an MP3 archive right there for premium members. So you can use via the Rockfin app or in your browser, you can get the audio only if you're looking to restrict the amount of data that it takes for you to listen to InnerVerse, so you're not looking at the screen anyway, or you're having some kind of trouble with the videos, maybe not loading well or the app crashing. All that kind of stuff is not so common anymore as they've made improvements to it. The MP3 archive is there, and I rarely tell you guys about it, but it is probably smart of me too, because I do take the time to put the audio only show up there for the extensions for the Rockfin members as well. So in this Plus extension, we got into some altogether fun stuff right away as we opened the conversation discussing out-of-body experiences, both natural and psychedelic induced. Clive has got a bunch of wild stories, and every time I talk to him, I get one or two of those out of him that I haven't heard before. We also discussed detoxing from the cowpoke. You know what I'm talking about. That circle, circle, dot, dot. Now you got your cooties shot. More and more people catching suddenly and having an accident. So good to know ways that we can mitigate that nanotechnology that is potentially what's in these cowpokes. I like that. He also brought up electrotherapy as a possible way to deal with the nanotech aspect of this, if such an aspect exists. Then we talked about germ theory and terrain theory in a nice balanced way. Then Clive discussed what he sees as the current, authoritarians' strategy, the bad guys' strategy behind the upcoming next wave of cooties. We talked about, I offered Clive, if he wants to talk to Topher about biochar and pyrolyzed carbon, because I wanted to know if he knew anything about taking that internally, which Topher does. But that led us into discussing charcoal as a supplement and what it can do for the body and carbon in general. Then Clive got into some other treatments, experimental modalities that he's been trying out, including cryotherapy, enhanced energy therapy, and taking out all your blood and filtering it and putting it all back in, stuff like that. Just a normal Saturday for somebody like Clive. Then we talked about the AquaCure or other hydrogen-based therapies, the science behind hydrogen. I asked him about solutions for allergies, as a lot of people here where I live at this time of year in September are having allergy problems. And then the last part, which one of my favorite parts, was we talked about ways to question the body to communicate with the innate intelligence of the body. Awesome. Now, as we're wrapping up here, I'm sure that there could be somebody out there who is very spirit-oriented or mind-oriented, thinking, I don't need no supplements to be healthy. And good on you. That's all fine. But I do want to point out that it is not, it's not a wise idea to, as Owen Benjamin calls it, purity spiral about what it is you think is the right way or the truth. Now, of course, like any other person I have on my show, Clive and I probably don't agree about everything. And some of the information that he shared, if any of it is something that you're going to act on, look into it yourself. You should always be doing that, but especially so with health-related information. Just because Clive was on doesn't mean I can endorse everything he says about how this affects that or what this is good for, yada, yada, how to take it, etc. For example, the boron supplement that we talked about, which I do stand behind that. I know boron is good. When Clive was talking about it, he also said borax. And as far as I know, borax is something not to take internally. Borax is like a cleaning agent and boron is a naturally occurring substance. I could be wrong about that, but I'm just using it as an example. I'm sure Clive is not intentionally saying something that could be the wrong thing, but everybody makes mistakes, especially when we're shooting from the hip, running and gunning, another Owen Benjamin phrase, in a podcast, it's podcast science. It's bro science, right? Trust me, bro. I heard it on a podcast. So just saying, look into things for yourself. Clive would say to do that too. That's why he provides the resources through his website. So all that being said, we tend to take sides in things in life. The germ theory versus terrain theory debate was so divisive that I feel like we lost a lot of the nuance in the truther community in terms of what could be going on there. Or, for example, the idea of snake venom being potentially behind some of the toxicity that is in food and water supplies, in the cowpokes. A lot of people just straight up, people I like and respect, and I think they have a lot of good information to share, just straight up go to ridicule mode when you bring that up. But jury's still out for me. I think that there could be something to it. And I have a lot of reasons to think that. So my point being, don't be in the purity spiral about, I don't need supplements. I can do everything with just the power of my mind and energy. Maybe you can, but consider the mind, body, spirit as a trinity that is your temple and your existence. And that if you're stuck in one area, you're stuck in the body, you can approach it through the mind and get unstuck in the body and heal on all levels. But the same is true if you're stuck spiritually or mentally or energetically. You might have success approaching it from the physical side. That's why I have conversations like this, even though my personal practice is in biofield tuning, operating strictly from the mental energetic level. So try to see things in the middle, try to meet in the middle, the balanced approach, the mercurial liminal space, place to be. Certainty brings ruin. Try everything, believe nothing, do your own research. I hope you get what I'm saying here. Yeah. Because I do both things. I do have some nutritional supplements and I do operate from the energetic level. I do use sound as a therapy. So I'm a bothist. Maybe it's the Libra aspect of my birth chart, which is a strong aspect. So anyway, I'm ready to wrap it up. I had a great time with Clive. Hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Check out the links below the episode for clive.decarle.com, but please use the link in the show description if you are going to make a purchase and not just go to the website, because if you use my link, I get the affiliate kickback. Please do that. Thank you. And it costs you nothing extra. So why wouldn't you? Thanks very much. There's also other great things that you can do, like Tippecanoe herbs. If you want to go a more natural route for your supplementation, the herbal tinctures, hydrosols, roll-ons, straight up herbal packets for tea, things of that nature. Kyle Denton and his wonderful wife, Serena, and their employees do an incredible job at Tippecanoe herbs. I love their stuff. You know him, you love him. He's on the Vibrant all the time. InnerVerse as a checkout code for Tippecanoe herbs will get you a 10% discount. Awesome deal. Hit me up for tuning, chance@innerversepodcast.com, or go to my website to find out more about the process if you want to hit things from the mental, spiritual, and energetic, emotional level. But like I said, I recommend approaching these type of things. I mean your health, your well-being on a holistic level, meaning hit it from every direction. Do it all. Do it well. So till next time, you guys, be healthy, be well, be good, and enjoy your lives. See you on the next one. Much love. Bye-bye.
Detoxing.